Today's case is a mysterious unsolved murder that shook the town of Bailey in Colorado. I'd originally planned to do a different case this week, but I saw news of some recent updates on this story, so I decided to shine a spotlight on this unsolved mystery instead. When I started digging and learning more about this story, it just seemed to get weirder and weirder, and I'm left with more questions than answers. It's been 4 years since this crime happened, and with the recent boost in news about Maggie, I really hope it helps bring some new evidence to light that could help her poor family get some closure. I'm not going to speculate or discuss any of the theories floating around on the internet about this case. I'm just going to tell you the facts as they happen and where the investigation stands today. On December the 1st, 2017, in the small town of Bailey, Colorado, just 45 miles southwest of Denver, 17-year-old Maggie Long was excited to go to a concert that night that she'd helped organize at Platte Valley High School. She was looking after the VIP section of the audience and needed to shoot home to pick up some water and cookies for the crowd. The drive would take 20 minutes, and she told her friend she'd be back as soon as she could. Maggie left at around 3:30 p.m. and would have arrived back to the theater between 4:30 and 5 p.m., but Maggie never returned. That evening, the concert went on without Maggie. Her friends, fellow students, and teachers were asking about her all night. It was unusual for her not to be there, especially since she was one of the organisers. At about 7:01 p.m. that same night, Fairplay Dispatch received a 911 call from a tenant living in the attic of the Long family home, claiming that there were people downstairs in the house arguing, throwing things, and trying to set the house on fire. The caller said that they were violent, smashing things, burning things, and that they didn't feel safe leaving the attic. A local resident reported an older model tan vehicle driving fast out of the Long ranch, crossing over into oncoming traffic. Police arrived at the Long family home just before 7 p.m, and the fire department was staged near the property at 7:12 p.m. Deputies who first arrived at the property could see a fire at the family home as they came up the quarter-mile driveway. They reported to dispatch that they could see visible flames in the garage. At 7:14 p.m, dispatch told the fire department to roll fire, meaning to leave the staging area and come up to the house. While the fire department started to work on the fire, police were running the license plates of all the vehicles at the property. One vehicle belonged to the tenant who made the 911 call, one to Maggie Long, and one was registered to Maggie's father, San Long. At around 7:30 p.m, the tenant in the attic called Maggie's mother, Heather Long, at the restaurant she owned and worked at, telling her he'd heard a bang and then the lights went out. Because the restaurant had customers at the time, the manager volunteered to go to the Long house to see what was going on so that Heather could stay behind and look after the customers. The manager took Heather Long's car and headed over to the ranch, but he couldn't make it because the entire driveway was blocked with law enforcement vehicles. The manager phoned Heather back at the restaurant and told her that there was something major going on and that she needed to come home now. Because the manager had Heather's car, a couple at the restaurant volunteered to drive Heather back to her home. While fighting the fire, police discovered a barricaded room in the home and made entry, but it's not known where this barricade was, whether inside the house or whether it had something to do with the attic. A deputy at 7:53 p.m. called Fairplay Dispatch to let them know that there were firearms in the house and that some may be missing, but there are no radio transmissions or records to show how anyone knew that there were weapons missing from the home. At 7:58 p.m, Fairplay Dispatch were called and asked to send a detective to the scene. At 8:12, the fire department finally put out the fire and asked dispatch to send the Colorado Bureau of Investigations out to the scene. They had found numerous starts to the fire, indicating that the fire was an act of arson. At 8:48 p.m, police informed dispatch that there was going to be an arson investigation, and a victim's assistant was sent to the scene. Victims' assistants are usually called to engage members of the family and others after a traumatic event has taken place. According to the manager of the restaurant, San Long, Maggie's father, was in Oakland, California on a business trip that night. The father was called in California and booked a flight back to Colorado. Long arrived back in the Bailey area sometime between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. on the Saturday morning. At 9:58 Saturday morning, one of the Park County coroner's deputies was cleared to come to the house. A coroner is usually only called to a scene if a body has been found, so this would indicate that a body had been found inside the house. CBI spent a good part of Saturday at the scene collecting evidence. According to radio transmission records, there were a number of interviews with interested parties at the Bailey substation that day, and by the end of the day, CBI had released the property to the family. Park County Undersheriff David Wohlers, in a statement released Saturday, December 2nd on the PSCO Facebook page, said, quote, "On-scene investigation is wrapped up. Cause and origin of the fire is still inconclusive. Still no sign of her. No body at the fire scene." But here's where things get weird. The undersheriff's statement of no body being found at the scene contradicts the fact that a coroner's deputy was sent to the scene. And at around 9:30 p.m. on the night of December 1st, Maggie's sister posted a call for help to Facebook to help find Maggie, who was considered missing at that point. There were numerous comments of concern and volunteers wanting to put a search party together, but the police said no, that it wasn't necessary, but they didn't give a reason. Park County Undersheriff David Waller said that they were not going to put together a search party to look for Maggie. He said they were working to see if there was a connection between her disappearance and the family home fire. When the students went back to school on Monday, there were grief counsellors made available for them. The parents were confused though. Why were there grief counsellors if Maggie was only missing? The community still had no answers and the police weren't saying anything. And then, on that same day, Monday 4th of December, the 11th Judicial District issued a gag order to all agencies not to release any information to the public or the media. After the gag order was rescinded, a press release issued by Sheriff Fred Wedgner on December 7th claimed that Maggie's body had been found in the house all along. Wedgner's press release also indicated that a task force made up of federal, state and local law enforcement had been formed to bring any individual involved in Maggie's murder to justice. A Be on the Lookout was broadcast at 4:40 p.m. later that day to the Denver Police Department. The contents of the bolo was reported by numerous Denver TV stations. It said, quote, "The bolo is going to be for a late model 90s to 2000 light coloured minivan, possibly driven by a white male in his 20s. Homicide occurred during an arson and the suspect driver may have some flash burns, as well as gasoline taken from the house, a large case, AK-47, 2,000 rounds of ammo, 7.62, and a 9mm Beretta. Please be advised the subject is considered armed and extremely dangerous." End quote. According to a statement made by the Park County Undersheriff, this was a mistake. He said, quote, "We did issue a bolo, but it was not intended for public consumption. It was supposed to go out through a confidential law enforcement source. I can't confirm what the media are reporting. It's really quite disruptive to our investigation. Because of the problems that has caused, we're going to have to reconvene the task force and decide how public clarification on the bolo will be crafted." Wallace also stated that the community was not in any danger. The community was shocked, horrified, and Maggie's friends were absolutely devastated. People had more questions than answers. Why had the police withheld information? Why did they wait a week to announce that Maggie had been dead all along? Why hadn't they found the killers yet? After waiting over a week to disclose any information, law enforcement wanted to know if anybody had seen anything. They set up a tip line, added a cash reward of $20,000 for any information leading to the capture of Maggie's assailants, and got to work questioning thousands of residents. They went door to door, taking DNA samples from boys in town aged 15 years and older. The police called in the FBI and the CBI, and roadblocks were set up by the ranch gates. They were stopping every resident going down the road and handing out flyers showing a sketch of a person of interest, 2 likenesses of vehicles that may have been used in the crime, and the items that were stolen, including 2 firearms, some jade figurines, and 2,000 rounds of AK-47 ammunition. Authorities also said that they are dealing with people who are likely lying to authorities, but despite it all, they came up empty-handed. On the 1-year anniversary of Maggie's murder, the FBI and CBI set up another roadblock by the ranch gates. This time, law enforcement said that they believed that there were 3 suspects with 3 vehicles, and that Maggie was purposely set on fire and burned alive. They had sketches of 3 males that they believed to be involved. They set up a website designated just for tips, as well as public information, and increased the cash reward to $50,000. But again, the case went unsolved. A statement on the website set up for Maggie said, quote, "Law enforcement believed the intent of the fire was to conceal actions of these assailants, such as the physical altercation and subsequent robbery." End quote. When another case similar to Maggie's happened in Missouri, the police and FBI sent a detective to interview the young survivor, trying to get a description of her perpetrators. They were, in fact, caught, but the DNA sample wasn't a match. The sad thing is that when the renters called the police, all the vehicles were still at the residence. The police or fire department had to have passed them as they approached the house. Unbeknownst to law enforcement, They allowed the killers to get away. Because their ranch backed onto acres of land and was secluded from the road, there was only one way in and one way out. They drove out of the ranch gates, passing law enforcement, and headed for Denver in the dark. But I want to get to know Maggie Long a little bit deeper. Maggie Long was born on December the 17th, 1999. Her parents were born in a Chinese community in North Vietnam and fled to the United States during the Vietnam War. They owned 2 local Chinese restaurants and a liquor store. Locals described Maggie as a shining light with an infectious smile. Nobody had a bad word to say about Maggie. She was a straight-A student and was often spotted with her head down studying at her parents' Chinese restaurant. Maggie would spend her spare time either at the local theatre that she was extremely passionate about or helping others less fortunate than her. Teachers and friends described Maggie as kind, altruistic, genuine, ambitious, and majestic. One of Maggie's favourite words. Speech and drama teacher Amanda Waterhouse had Maggie in her class for 4 years. She said, quote, "I would have days where I would say, 'Okay, Maggie, I want you to go around and say something good about every person in this classroom.' And she'd be like, 'Okay,' and be so excited to do it, and have genuine things to say about every single person because she truly loved everybody that she came into contact with. She saw the beauty in each of them." End quote. Maggie was involved in just about everything in her school. She competed on the speech team and cleaned up awards at all events, even placing at state several times. She also played the clarinet in the band, led the student council, travelled with the travel club, and became editor-in-chief of the school yearbook. Maggie absolutely loved acting and was always involved in school plays, as well as working at the Venue Theatre in Conifer. Nelson Conway, the managing director of the Venue Theatre, described Maggie as, quote, "a truly sweet and giving person, respectful and kind," end quote. Conway said that despite having to share Maggie with the speech team, the drama program at her school, and her various other extracurricular activities, Maggie was a hard worker, very considerate, and they loved her deeply. Maggie was always happy and enthusiastic at theatre. She was excited to learn how to sing and act with a passion that contrasted her usually shy and slightly timid personality. Maggie wanted to stay with the theatre company so badly, she even helped clean the theatre just so she could afford to stay in the program. But even with her packed schedule, Maggie always found time to help others, including her parents at the family restaurant. Every year on her birthday, instead of spending her day hanging out with friends or enjoying a party, Maggie would make hundreds of sandwiches and pass them out to the homeless on the streets of Denver. Friends said that you don't run across many people like Maggie in your lifetime. 2 weeks after her death, Maggie would have turned 18 on the 17th of December. Her friends continued her tradition of making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They handed out the sandwiches to the homeless, all in her memory. That June, Maggie was an honorary graduate, and her sister accepted her high school diploma. The Venue Theatre dedicated a scholarship in Maggie's name, called the Maggie Long Award, that is awarded to those that embody Maggie's beautiful spirit. They also dedicated a seat plaque bearing her name on the one seat that she always used to sit in to eat or socialize. The Long family released a statement about their daughter. Quote, "The fear of death takes away the joy of living. Our beloved sister, daughter, granddaughter, cousin, niece, friend, and classmate, Maggie was a joy in all of our lives. As many of you are aware, on Friday the 1st of December 2017, Maggie moved on from this world. Our hearts are broken, and this loss has been especially significant knowing the impact Maggie had on her community. We thank everybody in Bailey, as well as those in communities near us, that Maggie's life has touched for their support and love shared. Our family continues to work with PCSO and extended agencies. We want to thank them for their tremendous efforts. We are all committed to seeking justice for Maggie." End quote. Nearly 2 years after her murder, Maggie's family sold their home, closed both their restaurants, and moved away. What happened to their daughter was so traumatic they couldn't bring themselves to set foot in their house again. The official story from the police is that on the night that Maggie was killed, when she pulled up the long driveway to collect the cookies and water, she noticed a white van, an old beat-up Ford truck, and a brownish-coloured, older model minivan blocking the garage door. She possibly thought the cars belonged to the renters that lived in the attic. Upon entering her home, Maggie interrupted a burglary in progress by 3 or 4 young white males. They got into a fight but overpowered her, tying her to a bed. They'd stolen jade figurines, a gun safe, and weapons. They poured gasoline on Maggie and set her on fire. According to the coroner's report, she'd been burned alive. But after years of no updates, on May 18th, 2021, the FBI announced that they are now investigating Maggie's murder as a hate crime, and that the Long family were targeted after originally believing that it was a crime of opportunity. The FBI said that the Long family recently added additional money to what is now a $75,000 cash reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or people responsible for Maggie Long's murder. Tom McGraw, the Park County Sheriff, also said that extra resources would be added to the case. Law enforcement still haven't found the 3 suspects in the identikit. Authorities said the suspects may have been injured in the fire and could have changed their appearances, sold the vehicles, and moved away from the area. In a recent statement, Long's family said, quote, "Our family appreciates the outreach, kind words, and continued fight to find justice for Maggie. The reclassification of this case has brought light to a new angle that may bring answers. We are driven to find those responsible for such a heinous crime done to our innocent sister and daughter." End quote. There's a tip line set up if you have any information about what happened to Maggie Long. I'll leave that number in the description box below. Apparently, locals still feel a lot of rage about how the case was handled. The sheriff decided to start his retirement early, unbeknownst to the community who were paying his salary at the time, and many locals believe that the killers would have been found if that hadn't happened. This case really touched me. Maggie Long sounded like the most beautiful soul who just shone a light on every single person she came into contact with, and I cannot imagine what her family must be experiencing knowing that they still haven't caught the people responsible for such a terrible crime. I really hope that with this new information, fresh media attention, that maybe this will bring some new evidence to light that will lead to the capture of these people responsible. As always, if you're still with me, thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please go ahead and like, comment, and hit the subscribe button, and click the little notification bell so you get notified every time I release a new video about a true crime case. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.